process costing? Process costing refers to a cost accounting method for assigning production costs to mass-produced goods. Basically, there are industries where the product is not completed at just one stage. It has to pass through different stages. And these different stages are defined as a process. And each process has some cost which is transferred to another cost. The semi-finished good of one cost becomes the raw material for another cost, and the product is completed at a final stage at the last process. Process costing is basically followed in process industries. In process industries, products of identical units are produced after they pass through different distinct and well-defined stages in production. Each distinct stage of production is called a process. The raw materials introduced in a process come out in semi-finished condition. One process gives you a product in a semi-finished condition, then it is passed on to another process and another process till the final product is completed in a complete form. The raw material introduced in a process come out in semi-finished condition. The output obtained in a process which is in partly finished condition is passed on to the next process till they are complete. As I have already told, the output obtained in a process is in a semi-finished condition. It is passed on to the next process till the full process is complete. The output of a previous process becomes the raw material for the subsequent process. So in process industries, identical units of a product is produced on a large scale. For example, like car manufacturing industry, where the car is completed in its full and final form after passing through many stages. First, spare parts are collected, they are assembled, then there is a body fixed on the car, then there are accessories fixed, then in the final stage it is painted, then it is washed, and finally the car is completed in its full form and ready to go in a showroom. But this is just not a one stage process. A car has to go through many processes to come out in its final and complete form. So in process industries, identical units of a product is produced on large scale. The various batches of material introduced in a process cannot be identified to a particular batch of output. On each unit, same amount of materials, labor and overheads are expended. The total cost incurred in a process is spread over the units produced in that process during that period. So the cost gets averaged. Process costing is concerned with ascertaining the cost of production of each process separately. In certain industries like textile, the semi-finished goods in an intermediary process may be passed on to the next process in full or a part, and the balance may be sold in the market. Similarly, for an intermediary process, additional materials may be introduced through purchase in the market. Now, what are the industries which are suitable for process costing? Production industries like vegetable oil, paper, cement, iron, steel, and rubber, etc. Mining industries like gold, sulfur, mineral oil, etc. Chemical industries like soap, medicines, etc. Public utility undertakings such as water supply, electricity generation, and supply of gas. These are the industries which are suitable for process costing. What are the characteristics of process costing? One of the main characteristics of a process costing, it has a continuous production of identical units of a product on a large scale where sale is made. Another characteristic is the output which is in semi-finished conditions becomes raw material for the subsequent process till the product is complete. The amount of material, labor and overheads are incurred, all the units are same. Each process is a unit of costing. The expenses incurred during a particular period in each process are accumulated separately. The units produced in a process during a period is ascertained. Total cost of production during that period in a process is divided by the number of units produced in that period to arrive the cost per unit. The total cost is averaged over the units produced. The output of one process becomes the raw material for the next process till it is finished. Next is advantages. Advantages and disadvantages of process costing. Advantages. First of all, it is easy for the calculation for a particular period of time. It also helps to collect the cost of each process separately. It helps to find the cost effectiveness of a particular process, and cost control measures can be implemented with ease as actual and standard costs are available process wise. Apart from that, computation of cost of product in each process is easy as the product produced are homogeneous. It helps to identify the more efficient process. Standard costing technique can be conveniently introduced for cost control purposes. Now, what are the disadvantages associated with it? Only average cost of production in a period is found in case of process costing. This does not help the management in any kind of decision making or cost control. Only historical costs are available. It is of not much use in control and planning for the future as the total process costing is based on the historical costing. There will always be a stock of work in progress in the beginning and at the end of every period, and therefore it complicates the calculation of the cost of a finished product and valuation of partly finished products. All units of work in progress may not be in the same completion stage, so an element of arbitrariness is introduced in valuing them. When finished products of a process is passed on to the next process at a cost price, it becomes difficult to judge the efficiency and profitability of each process. Now, this was all about theory. We theoretical aspects. If we see the process or costing in a diagrammatical form, first parts and material, process 1, process 2. After we can get finished goods, process 3, process 4, and finished goods are available, and finally the cost of goods sold is arrived. Parts and materials are put on in process 1, then in process 2, process 3, process 4, then after process 4, sometimes it depends on the company's manufacturing length or manufacturing time period. It can be process 5, it can be process 6, and so on. After here we are assuming after process 4, finished goods are arrived at and cost of goods sold is achieved. Now, to understand this process costing aspect in a more elaborative and efficient manner, let us take up some practical aspects. You can see the question in front. Product A passes through different processes for completion. The following information relating to the process for the month of March is given. We have been given direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, and manufacturing overheads. Apart from that, we have been given total expenses of direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, and manufacturing overheads. And we have been given the expenses for process X, process Y, and process Z, direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. Manufacturing overheads are apportioned to process on direct wages basis. Neither there is opening stock nor closing stock of raw materials or work in progress during the month 1000 units were completed. Prepare process accounts showing cost per unit in each process. Before understanding the preparation or solving of a numerical, let us first make the format. First, we will take on the process X. There are three processes. Process X. Process X we have particulars, then we will write cost per unit. Then we will write total, all in rupees. Then again we will write, copy this, first is in left hand side, and now let's copy this on the right hand side. Let us take on the expenses one by one. First is to direct material. It is a kind of a ledger we are preparing. To direct material. We have been given total cost as 30,000 rupees and total units which are manufactured are 1000 units. So definitely cost per unit will be 30,000 divided by 1000. It will give 30 rupees per head. Next is direct labor. Direct labor is given 18,000. Direct labor is 18,000. 18,000 divided by again number of units, that is 1018, to direct expenses. Direct expenses for process X are given 5500 divided by 1000, which will give you 5.50. Next is two manufacturing overheads. Manufacturing overheads we have been given in the question as a total of 24,000 and there is no mentioning of manufacturing overheads process wise. So it has been given in the question manufacturing overheads are apportioned to process on direct wages basis. So on direct wages basis, how we will calculate? We know direct labor is 30,000 divided by 24,000. Sorry, I think there is certain mistake we are doing. We need to have, it is given in the question on direct wages basis. So direct wages is another name for direct labor. So manufacturing overheads, divided by direct labor 30,000, it will be into 100, which will give you 80%. Now what we are doing over here is manufacturing overheads divided by direct wages into 100 will give you 80%. So definitely what we are given over here 18,000, 80%, 24,000 is given. We will calculate 18,000 ka 80%. So start calculating. Let me calculate how much it is coming. Yes, 80% of 18,000 will give you the figure of 14,400. 14,000 divided for 400 divided by 1,000 will give you 14.40. Now we will get the total of cost per unit, which is 67.90, and we will get the total of total cost, which is 67,900. Now on credit side, this particular 67,900, the cost of process X, will become the opening balance for process Y. So by we will transfer this cost to process Y. As we have discussed in a theoretical part, that semi-finished state cost of one process becomes the opening balance or raw material for another process. So by transfer to process Y, it is 67,900, and cost per product per unit is 67.90. Now similarly, we will do for process Y. The format will be same. All these expenses will be same. So in order to save time, we will copy them as it is. But the figures are different. Yes, one thing more which we forgot to mention. This amount will be transferred to this process. So we will have an additional column over here, that is for 67,900 to process X. It is 67,900. Cost per unit, we already know it's 67.9. Now we will copy all the expenses as we have done in process X: direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. Direct material for process Y is 12,000. We already know. It is mentioned in the question. Similarly, divided by 1,000, it will give you 12. Direct labor, we know 18,000, 7,000. Divided by 1,000 will give you 7. Then direct expenses 3,000 divided by 1,000 will give you 3. Manufacturing expenses, as we have calculated, that it will be 80% of direct labor. 80% of direct labor, that is 80% of 7,000 will give you a figure of 5,600, and cost per unit will be 55.6. So we will do the addition. we will do the addition and it will be 95.50, and total cost will be in rupees for total number of units will be 95,500. Now this cost of 95,500 will be transferred to process Z by by transfer there is some typing mistake, no problem, we will correct it. By transfer to process Z, it will be 95,500, then it will be 95.5. I think you are clear. One semi-finished stage of production. The cost of semi-finished stage of production of a product will become a raw material for next process. As in this case, semi-finished stage of product in stage X now has become a raw material in case of process X. Now we will make another format which is process Z. So we will transfer these costs to process Z. Here we go. Next is okay. To process Y, because we are transferring in this process from process Y, so it will be to process Y. 95.5 as we have calculated, it is a cost per unit. Then 95,500 is a total cost. Now direct material, we all know it is given in the question, it's 8,000 and cost per unit will be rupees 8. Next is direct labor 5 and total cost is 5,000. Next is direct expenses given in the question are 1500. Sorry, it's 1500. So the cost per unit will be 1.5. Then manufacturing overheads, we know 80% of direct wages. We have been given in the question for process Z, the wages will be 5,000. Now if we calculate the 80% of 5,000, we will get 4,000. 4,000. And it will be divided by cost per number of units, which will give you cost per unit of rupees 4. Now this is the last process. After this we are not transferring any sort of raw material to the next process, so definitely this cost will be transferred to finished goods account. So this cost is 114.00, sorry, it will be in the next column, 114.00. Your total cost is 1,14,000. So this cost will be transferred to 114 and total is 1,14,000. So this is the amount which has been transferred to finished stock account. For your more brief understanding, let us briefly explain the question once again. This is a question related to process costing. A product has passed through different process X, process Y, and process Z. The expenses which have been given are direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, and manufacturing overheads. Now, first of all, we need to make a format. Format for process X will be like particulars, cost per unit, and total. Then again, particulars, cost per unit, and total, like a ledger. Now, direct material for process X is 30,000. Cost per unit is 30 because in the question it is simply straight away given that 1000 units were completed. So 30,000 divided by 30, sorry, 1000 will give you cost per unit 30. Then 18,000 is your direct labor cost. Then direct expenses are 5,500. Now manufacturing overheads. It has been given in the question that manufacturing overheads are apportioned to processes on direct wages basis. So manufacturing overheads divided by total of direct labor, that is direct wages, into 100 is 80%. That means for every direct 80% of direct labor, the cost will be transferred to manufacturing overheads. So direct labor for process X is 18,000, then 80% of 18,000 will give you 14,400 and cost per unit will be 14.4. Now we will do the total, which is 67,900 and cost per unit divided by 1000. 67,900 divided by 1000 will give you 67.9. By transfer to process Y, 67,900 divided will give you 67.9. Then process Y. Now this particular cost which has been transferred in which has been calculated in process X will be an opening balance in case of process Y. So 67,900 has been transferred in process Y. Then again we will note down direct labor and direct expenses which are given in the question. We know direct labor for process Y is 7,000. Then 80% of 7,000 will give you 4,000. Sorry, 5,600. And 5,600 divided by 1000 will give you cost per unit 5.6. We will do the addition of this cost per unit, then we will do the total of all these cost. After this we will transfer to process Z. The cost calculated in process Y will get transferred to process Z. We have mentioned over here by transfer to process Z the cost of 95,500. Now this cost of 95,900 will transfer to process Z by in this particular column to process Y, which because it has been transferred from process Y to process Y 95,500, and rest of the calculations we will do as it is, as we have done in the previous uh, calculations for process X and Y. Direct material 8,000 divided by 1,000 will give you cost per unit. Direct labor is 5,000 divided by 1,000 will give you cost per unit. Direct expenses divided 1,500 divided by 1,000 will give you cost per unit. Manufacturing overheads will be 80% of 5,000 because it has been mentioned in the question that the manufacturing overheads are calculated on the basis of direct wages. Direct wages are again your direct labor, 4,000, and cost per unit will be 4. Now we will add this per unit column, and we will, as this process Z is our last process, so definitely this particular cost, that is 1,14,000, will be transferred to your finished stock account. Just a second. 100 plus 8,000, 5,000, 1,500, 400, 1,40,000. Okay, I was simply wondering how this 1,14,000 came. So 1,14,000 came from 95,500 plus 8,000, 5,000, 1,500, 4,000. 1,14,000 divided by 1,000 will give you cost per unit, and this cost will be transferred to finished cost stock account because there is no further process and this is the last process. So this is transferred to finished stock account. So final cost of a product is 1,14,000 and cost per unit is 114. So this is how we solve the theoretical as well as numerical aspects related to the process costing. Thank you.